Darren, how are you doing today?
Hi, Chris. How are you? Great.
Yeah, I'm good too. Welcome to the Heart Dealer Podcast. Thanks for agreeing to chat with me.
I was looking forward to it all day. I was told you're going to ask me a bunch of dirty and nasty questions, tell some secrets, and tell some lies.
How
I
did you
enjoy I
know?
enjoy those casual conversations.
How did you know that was the topic, the running theme for the series? I'm going to start with something that I thought of as soon as I saw you pop on the camera with the glasses and the vibe.
Hmm.
We're going to finish with Icons of Rock, but I mean, I'm starting there right now. You guys
Okay.
cover Mr. Osborne, and he just passed away. How do you feel?
Sad. I mean, the whole world's going to miss him. What really surprised me is his last show, how much attention it got through the media and from never mind individuals and fans, but to have him pass away and go out the way he did that close to it, I mean, he rocked out right to the end, which is très cool. But it's sad that he's gone, and most of us have been asking ourselves for years, how's Ozzy still here? We've all been saying it, rightly
Mhm.
or wrongly, but now that he's gone, it's a hard thing to swallow. For me, we've been doing Ozzy, and we've been touted as doing one of the best Ozzy tributes. And I've done him from the with the long jacket in his latter years, not with the big blue dragon on his shoulder and the blonde hair, and getting down on his hands and knees and licking up Nikki Sixx's pee by the swimming pool, any of that nonsense. But we portrayed him as in his last years, the last albums, and I bent over a little bit. I played it up a little bit. I muffled my voice a little bit when I was talking, but it's still enough that it was legible that people could. But now he became our mascot, so to speak. I do a lot of promo videos and that kind of stuff, being Ozzy. He was always our spokesperson, and it was fun to be Ozzy, and it's still fun to be Ozzy because he has a good sense of humor. He's funny. Ozzy likes it when the real Ozzy likes it when people laugh at and with him. I enjoy the same thing, so that's why it was so easy for me to transform into him. But now, especially since his passing, and he's become rock royalty, even more so. It's almost, what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost a sin now to portray him in any way less than what he actually was as rock royalty. So I'm going to have to change the way I portray him now. He's kind of a superhero now.
Like
But
out of that sort of older, frail state, maybe back to his more youthful, fired up
yeah,
state.
yeah, we'll still look like him. We'll still sound like him, but we won't just play him off as the way I did it. I became kind of a buffoon with him sometimes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't intended to discredit him in any way. I was just trying to be that Osborne show Ozzy that everybody fell in love with.
Did you ever get to meet him throughout your career?
You know, I was invited to his former drummer Randy Castillo's wake in Los Angeles a number of years ago, 2002, that Sharon put together. He was there. Sharon was there. I've never met him. I regret not meeting him. I met a lot of people that worked with him. I've met a lot of people that know him being down here, but no, I've never met him personally.
Fair. Figured I'd ask. You actually said something really key there that I don't want to lose. You said that he took himself seriously as much as he didn't take himself seriously, or that
Right.
he appreciated when people, took the piss out of him, so to speak. I'm the same way. It's important to I guess work hard, play hard. It's important to appreciate yourself and then also know that you're a human being and you're fallible and sometimes you're gonna do stupid shit. And I think that's okay. Um, I think that's also one of the things we need in order to like achieve higher levels of success, right? If you're too serious all the time, then you're not gonna miss it. How do you balance it? Because I mean, you have a very serious thing going on, but there's a little bit of a shtick to it, being that you're covering other artists. How do you balance it all? Not to belittle the fact that you're also a musician in and of yourself, which we'll talk about.
Well, you learn from a very early age. even with my daughters when they were younger, they'd fall or trip or they'd do something funny. And we'd start to laugh because it's just human nature. And don't laugh at me. That's not. You teach them to laugh at themselves and with themselves and say, that's okay. That's just part of life. If you can't laugh at yourself and you take things too seriously, you end up surrounded by drama. You end up surrounded by negativity. When we're out performing, right from the time the band gets together and we climb on the tour bus, the laughter starts. We're laughing all the way to the show. My biggest challenge during the show, because nothing is scripted, is to try and make the rest of the band laugh along with me and some of the antics or things I say on stage. That's my challenge. But I do it in a way that the audience is obviously participating in what I'm doing. There's no inside jokes or anything like that. We laugh on stage. If we have something funny to share with the audience, we'll share it with the audience, and we often get them laughing. If you look online, somebody asked me to put some crowd interaction stuff from our live shows. And I just went and posted all the stuff that we kind of do, and you can hear the crowd laughing through the whole thing. It's good. It's fun. And it creates a connection, I think, a little bit more of an intimate connection with the audience. I mean, you can push that old sad and dreary and ballad side if you want to, or the rock and roll and the energy side. But once you get people engaged and laughing, that comes from the soul. Now you're connecting with people.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with you. There's so many good examples of that. I was in Palm Springs for the first time ever. Little trip with a buddy of mine for his birthday. I think it was last September, October, around that time frame. We got to this hotel, middle of nowhere, and of course they got bands playing because it's the U.S. and everything's huge. The market is huge, and so they always have bands playing. Just turns out that one of the bands, one of the nights was Steel Panther. I messaged the publicist. I'm in town.
Mm.
Can you hook me up? I've never seen them live. We've covered them several times, like on the magazine before, live photos and fun stuff. Uh, didn't know what to expect. I've only seen like it through the eyes of the coverage, which is kind of divided. They're so crass and they're rude and whatnot. It turns out that they're hilarious. And on stage, while they're in character and definitely being crass at certain points, they're also making fun of themselves. So you can tell that this isn't like, misogyny or anything like that. It's just a shtick and it's funny. And the crowd was loving it.
It is funny. I have seen them. I saw them before they were Steel Panther even, and they're doing the same shtick, the same thing, and it is funny. And again, it's them trying to make each other laugh. I think that's where the seeds to all of this came from. The songs, the lyrics, yeah, a little misogynistic, but it is. It's funny, and it pokes fun at the whole classic rock, what's going on backstage thing, the rock star lifestyle, the nonsense that they think is going on backstage. I mean, everybody wants to get backstage. They think that's where the party is. Maybe when you went to a Motley Crue show in the 80s or Van Halen, but that's not happening anymore. Not like that. The party's out front where everybody is, where the audience is.
I agree. I think people have also like society is maturing in some ways where it's more okay to talk about mental health and to talk about like the dad life and whatnot now. So backstage oftentimes from what I've experienced is more like great performance, nice to meet you, do you want to have a sparkling water and we'll talk about like what it's like to be on tour. I'm going to bed early, see you later. And that's okay. I mean, you can't party every day. Lord knows I've done that when I was younger and it definitely takes a toll.
Oh, we did that. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, and it's in previous bands. We don't need to go there though.
we
That's
should
that
we
Motley
should
Crue stuff.
definitely
That's
go there.
that Motley Crue stuff that everybody was striving for. Yeah, we saw a lot of that back in the 80s, 90s. But yeah, now we have what we call band prayer. We'll twist off a bottle of Jameson or a nice bottle of tequila, and we each have a shot. Rather than people putting their hands on each other or fist bumping, we each have a little shot. Band prayer. We do a little yodel, and we're on stage.
Warm up, just a little bit of liquid courage before you get on stage.
Yeah, I find it actually. I started doing this years ago when I'm singing. When I first started, I did background vocals. Now I'm fronting. But I found if I didn't get a chance to warm up properly, I would have a shot of tequila, and it seemed to get rid of the cobwebs. And I went online one day, years after I was doing this, and I found Cheryl Crow does the same thing.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And it takes away the cobwebs, and it really works for me. I'm not prescribing that for any up and coming singers, but it works for me.
Everyone's
It's only
got their
one.
own
Yep.
everyone's got their own tips and tricks, right? We're also all so individual, and like what food works for some people doesn't work for others, and you have to find, I guess, what works for you best.
Right.
Plus, as we age, we learn, we live, we relearn, and we adapt, and then we age out of certain things. And you've got kids now, I have kids too, and that in
Hmm.
and of itself changes the trajectory. You're like, oh my God, now there's someone that relies on me more than me. I gotta change my
Yeah.
course. It's
Yeah.
normal. I mean, Ozzy, to go back to the first question, he definitely toned down his partying over the years. Sharon Osbourne saved his life. I mean, he was a drug addict basically, and you can't live until your 70s, 80s, 90s doing that. I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions to every rule. I mean, Lemmy was apparently like, drinking hard and smoking until he died, but not everyone can survive that.
No, and they don't get the longevity that we want from them when they do that. But that's their life. They they
Absolutely.
they know the repercussions from their behavior, as do we.
Yeah,
So now we try to stay healthier. Once we hit that 40 mark plus, we focus on staying healthier in the
I agree.
mind and in body because we want that longevity.
Yeah, so, speaking of longevity, why don't we go backwards in time? Uh, we've chatted once before, and I was just so fascinated by some of the anecdotes you shared, and that's why I want to dive deeper into that. It was not only was it interesting, but there's so many lessons there for aspiring musicians about like staying the course, the amount of years you got to put in, right? The grind you got to put in to get somewhere, and how the payoff is after decades. In your case, also you literally embodied DIY more than most people in the sense that you started companies, you learned finance, you were, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I was about to say engineer, but like you were in instruments, you were creating like
Mhm.
circuitry and God knows what else. So why don't we go back? I think it was 84 to 87, 1984, 87. You're in Winnipeg and you're an
Right.
electronic keyboard specialist. And then there's 4 pages of resume to until Snake Oil. So give me the Coles notes. Let's go through some of this amazing history of Darren.
I started. I took all the nerdy classes in school, and I took extra credits, all the zero zero as Canadians and all the zero zero credits. So I had options at the end of grade 12. So I graduated with extra credits, and I went to University of Manitoba. It didn't take long before I was there before I realized it's not the path I wanted to be on. It was going against every grain within my being. I just finished 13 years of school if you count kindergarten. I didn't want to be in university anymore. I went down to my dad's office. My dad was the general manager at the time of United Grain Growers, all those big grain elevators you see all out. He said, well, I'm going to put you out in the crew then if that's what you're going to do until you figure out what you want to do. And I said, well, I want to be a musician. That's all I've ever wanted to be. My dad was a musician part-time, and I started playing with him when I was 14, playing bass in his country band, playing all the old country and western stuff and playing legions around the Interlake and Winnipeg area and socials. If you know about the prairie socials, we did a lot of those types of things. But I went and I did that for a while, and then it was getting too cold to go outside and pound nails, 10 stories up in the air, the wind's wisping by. We didn't have the safety nets back then that we do now, or the safety protocol.
Mhm.
I was up 10 stories high, walking on a 2x4 cribbing, chipping ice off with a hammer, working so I could walk down this thing carrying lumber, and it's straight down both sides. It was just ludicrous. Anyway, it was getting cold, and I didn't want to do that. And I got a call from a guy in Winnipeg asking me if I wanted to come and work as a salesman. And J.J.H. McLean was at that time Canada's oldest music house, which it's gone now, but it sold pianos and organs and that kind of thing. And they told me when I came in there, I took my hair and I put it in a ponytail and I tucked it in the back of my shirt because I thought, nobody wants to look at the hire long haired kid back then.
Hmm.
Anyway, so I went in there and they said, well, we have no desire to ever get into electronic instruments. Synthesizers were booming at that time. That's what was exciting to me. The 80s were all synth, the jump stuff, the Def Leppard stuff, the pop stuff. It was all keyboard laden, and I loved it because I was trained on it classically in piano from the time I
Hmm.
was six. So I jumped at that, and they said, well, we're never going to get into this electronica. We're going to stay traditional. We're going to sell grand pianos, and we're going to supply churches with church organs. That's what all we're going to do. And I said, sure, sure we will. Anyway, I brought it in just on a trial, and I stayed there for a few years. And when I left, and I left to go on tour, I didn't want to work anymore. When I left, it was by far the highest grossing product in the store were the synthesizers and electric pianos and that kind of thing. It was just a trend of the times. And when I left, I went on the road, started a band called Seventh Heaven. We toured mainly Western Canada, and I never looked back from there. Musically, then the 90s
Hmm.
came along. And we were in classic rock. We were the Canadian version of, what we like to think somewhere between Journey and Whitesnake at that time.
Okay.
You know, we all dressed and looked like girls. I mean, I still might with the hair and whatnot, but we wore short little jackets and tight pants. And I grew up in the country, but rockers then put their jeans or tight pants on the inside of the cowboy boots. So the 90s came along and the grunge came along, and that whole scene just went to sleep. Just,
Yeah.
it didn't die, it went to sleep. We thought it was gone. The big bands of the era tried to stay, in the public eye. Def Leppard, Kiss, all these bands, and they tried changing their music to match what was going on in the era to try to keep relevant. By doing that, they were losing fans that wanted to stick with the rock and roll, that were against what was going on, the new stuff. They weren't garnering many new fans, I would say, with the new style of music because it just wasn't honest. But we did see, I mean, we've seen now clearly for a long time, the artists that stuck with it, that music all came back. And now it's classic. So during the 90s, I kind of pulled it aside in Calgary. I was living in Calgary and I had my first child coming at the time. And my wife said, okay, time to be real people. I said, what's that mean? I don't know how to be real people. She goes, no, you're going to get a 9 to 5 job. You're going to come home every night. We're going to raise our kid like a mom and dad that are at home and be real people. And I said, okay, I'll try it for a while. And the promise was I was going to make enough money in whatever venture I jumped into so I could go back into music eventually and write, even or perform locally, whatever. So I got into telecommunications. I knew nothing about it. I met some guys at the Black Swan, which was a pub. It was like a Scottish-Irish pub in Calgary. And I went in there one night by myself. I met some guys in there that worked for AGT, Alberta Government Telephones.
So
And
let me jump in for a quick second before you continue with the story, just because I want um, the timeline to make sense for viewers, listeners. So you were born in uh, Winnipeg? Were you born
I
in
was
Winnipeg
born in
or
I was born in Manitou, Manitoba.
okay?
My
And you were
dad, yeah, my mom and dad, by the time I was 2, they moved into Winnipeg. And then I grew up in a small bedroom community called Stonewall, Manitoba, which is
okay,
20
so you were
minutes out of
there.
Winnipeg.
You were there. You did school there. You
Yeah,
started work with this JJ's McLean after working with your dad for a little bit and doing
right.
death-defying acts 10 stories up. How long were
Yeah.
you with the first band before you pulled back and went back into um, 9 to 5 world?
Well, there'd been numerous bands that I had been in Winnipeg before Seventh Heaven. Seventh Heaven is the one of note. Seventh Heaven is the band that if you were around, people still talk about it. When I go back to Winnipeg or I go to Calgary or Saskatoon or Regina or Vancouver, aren't you the guy from Seventh Heaven? And the name kind of lasted a little bit longer because one of my bandmates, who's a true Canadian at heart at the time, his name's Brent Fitz. He's been lucky enough, or he had the stick-to-itiveness to move down to the States, and he's ended up playing with everybody. I mean, he's the drummer on call. He's Slash's drummer, Slash and the Conspirators. He's been out with Gene Simmons. He's been out with Ace Frehley. He started with Vince Neil, Alice Cooper, Theory of a Dead Man, Econoline Crush. I mean, Lita Ford. I can keep going forever. And he's up there right now doing dates, filling in with Streetheart, who's still going. Who else is he playing? And Took. That's the other. So he's kept the name going, and people still recognize us from that era. But there were, I'd say, 3 or 4 other bands before that one. That's
How
the one.
long? How long did you roll with Seventh Heaven?
I'm going to say that was about a 4-year stint.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
and we
you're in Vegas now. I'm sure you're going to get to at some point in your timeline how you went from Canada to the US.
right. So starting telecommunications, 1993, first daughter's born. Starting a business I know absolutely nothing about. They told me it was deregulating. I said, what does that mean? They said, well, the telephone company's not responsible for any inside work anymore, so they're going to have to hire outside contractors. I said, okay, what does that mean? They said, well, all the home builders and stuff are now going to have to either hire people that know about installing cable and know about installing telephone lines and sound systems and all that stuff because electricians don't do that right now. I said, okay, sounds good to me. I said, does it make good money? Oh, yeah, it makes good money. So we met again after that, and we put together a company, and they never showed up to the first job. So I went to the AGT store, and I got a little pamphlet for the homeowner, how to wire up a telephone system. Long story. I'm a reader. I'm that chronic guy that if you buy something and the manual's like an old phone book, I read the thing before I take it out of the box. I've always been that way. So I taught myself how to do telecommunications, getting into fiber optic. I ended up inspecting the whole Alberta SuperNet, all the fiber optic install for the whole province of Alberta. There's over 30,000 installs there. I sold the company that I was in initially, bought a junior capital pool. I think they're called CPCs now. Essentially a vehicle at that time to take my company public.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at one time, this is about 1996 now, at one time I had 64 people working for us in the offices and on the street as agents. We had 14,000 customers within the first 6 months. It did well. We were routing traffic, telecommunications traffic, building switches, manning switches. We had a call center. It was an interesting time, but again, like building grain elevators or going to university, in the back of my mind there was that gnawing. It's not where I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up getting more aggressive, chasing dollars, and got into oil and gas. And I brought my family and some of my cousins involved into that. And we came up with a patented process. I got a patent on cleaning out oil and gas refinery furnaces. So we set up offices in Houston. We had offices in Calgary. It's called Innovative Coke Expulsion Inc. ICE. Here come the Icemen. And we built these. We had a fleet of semis that pulled these big trailers that we had fabricated and designed ourselves, big 51-foot trailers. And essentially, where they're spalling or shooting up this soot into the atmosphere, which we all know they were doing. When they were cleaning out their furnaces, they'd send a fireball through those pipes. We'd go in there, tie in with ambient water, just room temperature water, fill up our tank from water they're supplying us, polish it out, no spark. It was friendlier to the furnaces. It was friendlier to their pipes. We could do it faster than them spalling. No pollution. We'd collect everything out of it and barrel it for them, and boom, boom, we're in and out. And it's 100% environmentally friendly. We sold that to Eveready. I got out of it a little early. I sold my shares, but it sold to Eveready in 2001. Then what did I do? Oh, I got into water filtration businesses with a partner, Deb Belinsky, who is in the sports field. She's done a lot of great things with Major League Baseball, with hockey teams. She's still out in Toronto, but she introduced me to the Tampa Bay Rays. She was down there doing some work for them. And she said, Darren, you got to come down here as a songwriter. They need some inspiration. And I said, well, are they going to pay for me to come down? She goes, no, this is for you to come down. She goes, I'm going to set up a meeting for you to go in there. She goes, I think they can use some of your inspiration. I said, okay, I don't really know what that means. So she set up a meeting with me, and I went and met with the management of the team. This was back in 2006-ish. And I said, well, okay, here I am. I'm a songwriter. At this time, I was playing with Harlequin. I was with Harlequin at that time, full time. We were recording albums. They'd just been inducted into the Western Canadian Music Hall of Fame. And they said, well, Darren, I said, tell me about the Rays. Well, we used to be called the Devil Rays, but now we're just the Rays. I said, okay. I'm looking at your logo, and you've got this nice little spark there. I said, tell me the story about the spark. What does that represent? I don't know. Fire, energy. I said, okay. I said, I have an epiphany here. I said, we're going to give you a tagline. I'm going to come up with a song to pump up your players in the dressing room. We're going to come up with a song to pump up your people in the stands. Let's try and fill your stands, at least this season. I understand your hopes and expectations aren't to win the World Series or anything. They're last place, and they didn't expect to move very far out of that, but they just wanted to put some asses in their seats.
Yeah.
So I said, here it is. Feel the heat rays. I said, that's the rays of Florida sunshine. Mm-hmm. That's the rays of energy. That's the Tampa Bay Rays. Feel the heat rays. We're going to come up with a rock and roll chant, AC/DC-ish, kind of a 4-4 on the floor. And we're going to get all your people in the stands. We're going to give them little rays, cowbells, because I'm going to cowbell this on every quarter note. Feel the heat rays, and we're going to get them out there clanging on these things. They're going to be pounding. It's going to be interactive. The players are going to be interactive with the people in the stands, and it's going to create some energy. And that's what I sold them on. And I was working with Darcy Raymond at the time there, and he said, I like this. He says, I can see this going somewhere. I had a song written and done that afternoon. I went home and recorded it. I flew back there. Of course, Tampa Bay, I think it was the Times or Free Press or Tribune, I can't remember. They called me, and they had my picture when I flew back there in the front page of the sports section, playing guitar. This Canadian guy comes up with the theme for the Tampa Bay Rays, Feel the Heat Rays. But I got off the plane, and I'm driving to the Trop from Tampa in St. Petersburg. And I see all these signs everywhere. Feel the heat rays. Feel the heat rays. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is awesome. I'm patting myself on the back all the way.
Absolutely. I mean, you should. And I think you told me that I don't know if you have lifetime seasons tickets, because I would have negotiated that. But you got a ring, apparently.
That year, unbeknownst, or nobody could have predicted it, they went to the World Series for the first time. Killer team, and they won the American League. They lost the series, but they went right to the end, and kudos to them. I mean, the fans were behind them. Florida was behind them. The players were behind them. And after they got there and won, I was hoping they were going to win the World Series, but they didn't. They sent me a ring, and they sent me a nice long note thanking me for helping inspire them and put the energy back into the team and making them feel like a team. I mean, I'd never sat and talked to the team members or anything. It was just through the music and the energy and the interaction with the crowd supporting them at the home games. I guess I appreciated the heck out of it anyway. So I've still got a ring, and it's not going to Pawn Stars anytime soon.
We could basically end the podcast there. That's such an amazing story. Uh, I'm kidding. You have so much more to talk about. Isn't it wild how a song, a music, a vibe can inspire people, invigorate people to the point where something like that big of a turnaround in a season is possible?
The analogy is just anything is me sitting here doing what I do.
Yeah.
I remember sitting in my uncle's Dodge Charger and him putting the Beatles on when I was like 4 years old. I can still remember the first song. It was Can't Buy Me Love. And like, what is that? I've never heard anything like that before because my dad was playing, my mom and dad were listening to like Anne Murray and old time fiddle music and old country and western. I'd never heard anything like that. And the radio stations at the time, to be fair, weren't playing the heavy rock. They were playing the pop stuff. But that inspired me right from that moment to want to be a musician. My mom bought these books when we were kids. This is grade 1, and you put in your pictures from your class and your friend and your report card. And then you write down on the back of it, what did you like about grade 1, the name of your teacher, what do you want to be when you grow up? So I have that right from grade 1 to grade 12. It's a great big thick scrapbook. Every year, rock star, rock star, rock star, musician, musician, rock star, rock star. That's all I ever wanted to do, and it was because of the music. So when I'm using that analogy,
Mhm.
it it's an intangible that is so tangible is music. It's like love. I mean, it's there. We feel it. We know it exists. It drives us, but you can't reach out and touch it. It's
Yeah.
just an intangible wonder, magic, the magic of life. It's music and love, and they're very intertwined.
I agree. I mean, one of my this whole company is founded on that principle, right? Like most people don't know that V13 is actually leet speak, which is the internet language of mixing letters and numbers, and it's the French
Mhm.
word vie, la vie,
Right.
because Nietzsche once said, "Without music, life will be a mistake," and that's where we started, right? We started with music and then started to expand from there. But for me, music is life. Music is, that. Crazy energetic frequency that goes through the fabric of all existence. And it's we are bound or yeah, bound by sound.
Man, would it be dry if there was no music? And I don't even care what kind of music. It'd be like watching paint dry,
Yeah,
going through life without music, in my opinion. I feel huge empathy for people that, are deaf, I mean, are mute or without sight. I mean, those things would be
yeah,
horrible to lose as well, but it's just such a big part of our lives.
agreed. Um, that Ray's story is wild. You said that was 2006, but let's take a quick step back again because
2006, 2007, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so I think it was 2003 that you started with Harlequin. So why don't you tell me, because you could probably spend an hour just talking about like your career outside of music and all the companies you built and all the infrastructure you laid and whatnot. What was it that finally said like, screw this, screw the money, screw these companies, I'm selling everything, I'm getting the van and the band back together? Like, how did you come back to music after taking what I think is roughly a decade away?
Well, all of those things that I'd piled on my plate in Calgary, um, the Icemen, the oil and gas project, the telecommunications project, I had a couple of other projects that I fronted there as well. I was doing a lot of them at the same time. My first marriage fell apart because of it. And I sat there, and she took my daughter and she moved back to Winnipeg, and I'm sitting in Calgary, and I'm like, what am I doing this for? What am I busting my ass for? A few bucks? I have enough money now. This is not where I want to be. I didn't want this to happen. I mean, it was meant to happen, I mean, in hindsight, but so I said, screw this. I'm going to, and serendipitously, I went and recorded a solo album in Winnipeg just because I wanted to do it in 2004. No, 2002. And the guy in the studio called me and he said, Darren, there's a band looking for a guy with your talents, somebody that can sing, play keyboards, and play guitar. I said, okay. I said, I'm interested. Tell me who it is. No, I can't tell you. So he said, just tell me if you're interested or not, and I'll just tell them, give them your number, and they can call you. So I sat and I waited for a little while, and I didn't hear anything for a little while. And during that little space of time, I kind of wound down all my businesses. I sold my shares. I was sitting in Alberta, now not working. A buddy of mine called me and told me to come out and hang out and be an extra for a day. And I go, what's an extra? He goes, well, that's people that walk around in the background of the movies. I said, no, I don't think so. He said, come on, man. He said, get out of the house. Come on. He said, just come down, hang. He said, you'll like the people. It'll be fun. And I said, who's in the movie? He said, it's Kevin Costner movie. I said, okay. I said, is it a duster? And they go, yeah. And I said, okay, I'll come down. It was being filmed out by Canmore in a little western town made out in the middle of the bush out in the mountains. So I drove out there and parked where I wasn't supposed to park. And the agent came out and said, well, you're here for a day and you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, can't do this. And I'm already done before I've walked across. She goes, you're going to have to sign this agency. No, I'm not signing anything. I'm just here for the day. I just said, buddy of mine told me to come out and be an extra for a day. I'll check it out. I said, if I like it, I'll sign it. So this is all in the first day. I went there and I'm sitting in a tent. Everybody's sitting there. I said, screw this. I'm going to go sit down and watch them film the movie. So I snuck out the back of the tent and I went down to where they were filming. And I walked right to behind where the camera guys were. They have this little sun visor tent that they're all standing in, and they're filming and checking what they've got for footage. And I walk in there and they say, hey, who are you? I said, well, my name's Darren. They said, what do you do here? And I said, I'm just coming down to check it out for the day. And I told them I was just there for the day. They said, well, come on in. We'll show you what we do. So here's Kevin Costner walking the street and they're shooting. Hey, there's Annette Bening. It was interesting. Michael Gambon was in it. Robert Duvall was in it. And then I get this tap on my shoulder. This agent lady comes up to me. She says, I thought I told you very clearly that you were supposed to stay behind the white rope up in the tent. And I said, I know. I said, okay. So I went back and I sat there for a little while. And I was starving. Now it's 1 p.m. And she said, well, I said, can I get something to eat? She goes, well, we go in and eat after the actors are done eating. They go in there first, they vacate, and then we can go in there. I said, well, screw this, talking to myself. Walked out the back of the tent, and I walked into the tent where they were eating because I was hungry. And while I was filling the plate, I'm looking over, and there's this long bench table, and there's Kevin Costner, and there's Robert Duvall, and Annette Bening. Kim Coates is there. And I walked over there with my plate of food, and I said, do you guys mind if I sit with you guys? And they said, no, come on, sit down. What's your name, and what do you do? I said, well, I'm Darren. I said, I'm just here for the day. I'll probably be fired after this. I said, a buddy of mine told me to come down, check it out, so I am checking it out. So they asked me what I did and what I do and where I've been, and we ended up becoming engrossed in about a half an hour conversation. One of the first things they asked me at the table, I said, you're an interesting looking character. What's your sign? And I started to laugh. And they said, "What's so funny?" And I said, "This is so stereotypical what I think of people from LA. What they would ask me what my sign is." Anyway, so I left there, and when I'm walking out, the agent is standing there with all the people lined up ready to come in. And she goes, "Come and talk to me. I need to talk to you." She goes, "You're going to be a handful for me." She goes, "At the end of the day, we'll pay you for the day and you can go home." And I said, "That's fine." So I went, she goes, "Can you just sit in the tent for the rest of the day and not cause any more
Leave
problems?"
everyone alone.
Yeah. So I'm sitting in the tent and I had the Calgary Sun and I'm reading the Sun and these three or four people come walking in. There's about 150 extras sitting in this big white tent. And I'm sitting back there and they're pointing at me in the back and I pull the paper up and I said, "Oh shit, now they're going to give me shit for parking in the wrong spot." So she walks up to the podium. She goes, "We would like to congratulate one of our people, one of our extras here that has been asked today to join them and be in the cast of the movie. Darren Moore, would you stand?" And I go, "What?"
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So I went up there and I just said, "I'm so sorry" to her. And she goes, "You're a bad example for everybody in here." And I said, "I'm so sorry." I said, "I didn't mean to make your life so difficult." So anyway, they gave me my own trailer. I'm not an actor. I am now they gave me my own trailer with my name on it. Now I go in and I sit with Robert Duvall in the morning. I sit with Michael Gambon and Annette Bening and I get my hair done and they put my Western outfit on and I ended up doing some stunts and being a double. And Kevin kind of used me as his utility guy. Darren, go out there and hold your gun this way, run from that building to this building and shoot this way. And he'd have the actors there standing. Yeah, yeah, do it the way Darren's doing, like that. So I was kind of his puppet. But I stayed for 3 months because now it's fun. So I
Three
got to go to the,
months, 1 day into three
yeah.
months.
Well, now I'm hanging out with people that can tell me some really interesting stories. I've got real pearl handled guns, in my costume, and I get to meet Kevin Costner, and I'm talking to his fiance at the time, and they're very interesting people, and I enjoyed it. And at the end of it, they asked me if I would consider coming on, and they were going to shoot a film. It was being done by a guy, executive producer. His name was David Valdez, and they asked me if I'd be interested in coming over to Prague because they're going to shoot a show called, it'll come to me, a monster movie. It was Von Helsing. You remember the
Oh,
Von
okay.
Helsing movie? And I just said, "No, this isn't for me." I wrote a song for Kevin Costner and I for the movie, and I gave it to him. But he ended up going in. He had he had appendicitis, and his appendix had burst. He had to leave the set early. He was directing it, and I guess whoever made the decision never got the song. But I was hoping I was going to pull a Bryan Adams out of the hat, like he got his first big break with the other Kevin Costner movie, the Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, right? Everything
Yeah,
I do it for you. That's how he
yeah,
got
it
his
was
big
huge.
break. So I was close. Anyway, then I ended up going out on the road with Harlequin for three
Okay,
weeks.
hold on. I gotta,
Yeah,
chime in a little bit before the next round of
yeah.
stories. So that's amazing. There's like this pattern that's starting to show itself about you and your tendencies. What would current you tell young you, now that you are where you are in your career? It seems like you just kind of keep going wherever you want to go. You stay true to yourself and you kind of create as much opportunity as possible. And all of a sudden, you're in a meeting with the Rays. All of a sudden, you're shooting for 3 months. Like, what's your tactic and what would you tell your young self? I'm essentially trying to get information or inspiration for aspiring artists out there. Don't just sit at home and stare into your computer monitor. Make shit happen.
You got to go out there and do things. Don't be afraid to try things. Don't be afraid to contact people. Don't be afraid of looking foolish or getting in trouble. I mean, there's clear, defined, common sense lines with that. I mean, don't do anything illegal. Don't do anything that's going to jeopardize your health or anybody else's health or safety. That's just foolish. But yeah, I liked the adventure movies when I was a kid. I liked the pirates. I liked the guys that took a chance. I like the dusters. I like the westerns. I like I like the superheroes. I loved reading comics when I was a kid. I liked adventure. I like going out and trying and doing different things. If you have an aspiration, follow it. Don't ever let anybody tell you and I don't care if it's your parents, I don't care if it's your brother or your best friend or the kids in school or your coworkers. Oh, you'll never do that. You can never do that. He's tried that and he failed miserably. You can't do that. No, you're dreaming. Don't try that. You hear that same story with everybody that's had any level of success. They've tried it and they've stuck with it and they got there. It's that old stupid adage, and it kind of pisses me off. It's that misery loves company thing.
Hmm.
When people don't have the aspirations to get out of the, and I'm going to say sometimes rut they're in, and if it's not a rut, that's fine. If they're fine living in a complacent, some people are complacent, and
Yeah.
some are happy where they are, and that's just who they are, and that's okay. But if that's not you, don't let that misery loves company thing hold you down to their level if that's the people that are telling you those things. People that truly care about you and love you and know you are going to stand behind you and coax you, say, yeah, man, do it. Do it.
They're going to encourage you. I actually heard a saying recently that I'm a big believer in manifestation to a certain degree. You have to think about what you're going to go after, and ultimately you
Hmm.
do have to go after. You can't just sit there and say, "Oh, I'm going to wait for it to come to me." It requires work, but you still have to envision where you're going to go. Someone said, "Never say I can't. Just say I haven't done it yet." Like
Yeah.
if you haven't scaled a mountain because it's ridiculous, and you've never even climbed stairs in your life, sure, that's crazy, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. Just say you haven't done it yet.
My dad
So
used to say, clearly, he used to say, can't is not a word, not in this
mm,
household. Yeah. Continue.
yeah,
Sorry to interrupt.
no, not at all. It seems like the same tenacity, that same attitude is what allowed you to follow your passion with music and then, start multiple different companies and just go and read the book and figure it out yourself. And then, IPO and then sell the shares and then go back to music and then do a movie and then the Rays. What else do you attribute to your success? Because we still have a decade or two to talk about to get to present day, but what else do you think helped you along the way?
It's a new, it's not a new word. It's an old word, but it's taken on a new meaning. And you said it. It's manifesting.
Mm,
I'm just starting to hear it a lot everywhere. So I delve into it a little bit and seeing what people are talking about when they're talking about manifesting things. It's almost become spiritual. And it's not that I think I probably agree with it more than disagree. If you believe something strong enough, you can make it happen because it's going to lead you down the right path, that belief, and it's going to keep you going down that path to your objective, whatever it may be.
mhm.
Is it a bit spiritual? Well, what isn't? I just said life and or life is love and music. That's all spiritual a little bit. It's intangible. Manifesting is just a belief. It's the same thing. It's following your heart. That's really what it is. And don't let anything, especially yourself, get you down.
Yeah,
Just keep going.
and I agree. I mean, it's okay to be down. We all have bad days, sometimes weeks, sometimes longer. It's the can do attitude, right? Like you go to bed, you wake up, and the next day you do it again. And if it's another shit day, then you grind through it best you can. But eventually, it won't be like that. I mean, to quote the movie The Crow, I think it was Brandon Lee said, "It can't rain all the time." It's at some point something will break and it's going to start moving in the other direction.
The shit days are there for a reason too. I think there's again this whole manifesting thing. You've kind of opened a can of worms here with me. If you don't know how to measure good things, or if you don't know what you don't like, how do you know what you do like? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You got to have those shit days. You got to try that shit flavored ice cream once in a while that gets stuffed in, in your hand. You, if you don't know what you don't like, how are you going to know what you like?
Yeah.
For sure. Because I've gone
You,
down roads, and like I've said, I've invested time, money, years doing things. Like I said before, in doing those businesses, I mean, I learned a lot about it, more about myself, but I learned about, society a little bit. I learned about business. I learned about banking. I learned how to bend the rules a little bit with certain things. I learned how to deal with banks. I learned how to deal with people that are, you know, stand behind their rule book, whether the rules make sense or not. I always found a way to navigate around that a little bit.
much of
Yeah.
the how much of the business side of your career and all the startups and things you've done do you think has helped with your musical career, especially now with Snake Oil and Icons of Rock?
Logistics are clearly important. Arriving at the gig safe and on time, and the wheel still rolling on the tour bus and the trailer and all your gear working in it. That's part of organizational skills you learn running a business. Your financial uh, side of your business. I mean, there is no business if there's no finance. If you're losing money, your business isn't going to be around very long. So you learn how to handle your money, learn how to invest your money, know what you can risk and what you can't risk if things don't go your way in the short term. Know how to deal with investors. Know how to entice people, especially now with where we're going, knowing how to deal with sponsors, knowing how to, well, I do all the contracts. I drafted all of our contracts. I do all of our legal stuff. And believe it or not, there's a lot of legal stuff that we have challenges with. I mean, even today before we talked, and maybe I shouldn't let the cat out of the bag, but I'll see how far I can go. Somebody, a venue that we're playing, got an email from some person or persons saying that one of the people in the band has allegations against them for this, that, and the other, which is absolute bullshit. I know who it's coming from. It's coming from somebody that wants to kind of offset us off kilter a little bit. It's a competitor, and the world is so big. But you just learn to buff that stuff off, and you learn how to quietly put it to sleep. If I have to hire a lawyer, or I know the right things to do to say to people, to put that stuff away so drama doesn't become engorged. It's everywhere. I mean, in business, there's drama. In this, there's drama. I just try to stay away from it as much as I can. We write about it, and that's it. The rest of it can stay out of our lives. So I've learned how to deal with those things in a professional manner, being in business.
Mhm.
And
Let
I've
me ask
learned
you.
to, yeah,
I was
yeah.
just gonna say, let me ask you this, because a lot of artists that I talk to now, especially younger ones, there's this divide between artistry and business, and at some point the two overlap, and that's okay, right? I do believe that the artistic process should be kind of separate and whole, and really just, I guess, singular and organic, for lack of better words. How do you do both at the same time? It's a lot of work to understand business and to understand finance and all these things, but also then to lock out the world and just focus on art. How do you balance the two?
It's funny. I do it physically. I mean, this is all I do. So from the time I get up till the time I go to bed, every day, 7 days a week, this is all I do. When I go on holidays, which isn't very often because I'm traveling all the time as it is,
Mhm.
I'll see something on holidays. Oh, we could use that in our costuming. Oh, that's a cool idea. We could add that into the show. But it's a matter of what you're passionate about. But what's funny to me is since I've been doing both, I have an office upstairs where I have a computer with multiple screens that I do all my business stuff. So I'll do all of our banking, all of our accounting, all of our tour management stuff, set lists, uh, poster design, all that T-shirt design, all that stuff. I do all that stuff upstairs in my office. Down here, it's all music. All I do down here is, well, Pro Tools. I write, or I'm writing an album right now. I don't know if I'll call it an album because albums don't get released all at the same time anymore. With my youngest daughter, who's just turned 18. But so this is my arts part of the house, and upstairs is my business. The last house we were in Wisconsin, my arts, I was down at, we had a walkout basement, so my arts studio was in the basement and my business was upstairs. Yeah. So I physically separate them.
Which makes perfect sense. So you essentially have different lives for the different roles, and that way they don't necessarily. I mean, I'm sure there's overlap, but they're not going to interfere with each other because you're creating you're allowing the creative side of you to have its own space, and then the business side its own space. I'm assuming it's the same thing for fatherhood and family because that's its own business and life as well.
Wow. I encourage my kids love music as well. They love the arts. My oldest daughter runs a dance and DJing and acting studio out of Okotoks, called Artist Avenue. She's just won a big award for Canadian for her business. It's her first year in business, and she won first place in some business award, and it's nice financial reward for her. So she stayed in the arts. My youngest one wants to be. She's an honor student. She's in grade 12 her last year, and she wants to be a singer. She wants to be the next Dolly Parton. She just loves Dolly Parton. I tried to instill some rock and roll in her, but she likes country music. So, but yeah, it's hard. It bleeds over, and I think it's infectious because it's bled over into all my kids love music and they love the arts, but they all understand what responsibility in our society happens to involve the stuff none of us, well, some of us don't like to do, which is the business side.
Mhm.
I try to get out of the way first thing in the morning.
It's important, we my team had a chat with a new client this morning. We were onboarding him into a program. We're going to be working with him for the next year, and we were just kind of unloading all of the resources that we think he should look into, and talking about the timeline, like what he can he what he can expect monthly for the next 12 months. Um, and I said at one point, the analogy with all the documentation, everything is, you don't have to be an expert in this stuff, but all these tools are here to better you so that you're
Mhm.
more independent and less likely to be taken advantage of, not by us because we're honest, but even us, right? Even anyone that you work with in the industry, the more you know, the farther you'll go, so to speak. And the analogy I used was a car. I'm not going to be a mechanic. I'm not going to go and fix my car. Some people love that. It's not for me, but I should know
Mhm.
enough that if my car blows a tire on the side of the road, I know how to get the jack out. I know how to raise that thing up, throw a tire on, and then get it to the service station rather than saying, I'm stranded. I can't do anything. Like, know the basics, know the fundamentals. And I think the same thing applies with business and accounting and all that stuff. You
Yep.
don't have to do it, but know it.
So many of my heroes, the classic rock artists, I mean, right from the Beatles on through to Van Halen and Kiss and Journey, a lot of these bands, they were all screwed over by somebody along their path because they didn't understand the business. They didn't
Yeah.
understand contracts. They just, they had some wind blowing in their sails from some fast talker and they got screwed. So you got to know the business side of it. And that story's been told everywhere for any aspiring artist. They know that. Or hire somebody or find, a mentor that can help you out along that path until you figure it out for yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's what our company aspires to do is be the team that the artist needs so that you can go from artistry to business and have that full package without losing your shirt.
You've
Don't
got a
sign
great
away.
project. Yep. Go ahead. Great
No, thank you. I
project.
appreciate it. I was just saying, like, don't sign away your rights, royalties, your IP. work with people that understand that can help you accelerate that. And then as you learn more and as you grow with the business, then you can worry about, giving away more here and there. It's no different than running your own business. You want to own as many shares as possible, but then as you scale, you realize, crap, I need more help with this, and this. I have to then start to give away a bit more in order to get back that help, so that that little bit more is actually bigger for everyone after time.
Smaller piece of the pie, but it's a much bigger pie. Yeah, you dilute
Yeah.
yourself a little bit all the way along. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, let's talk music again for a second. So you did like Harlequin for about a decade, and the band was actually doing really well. Like towards the end of your tenure there, my notes say like performed on a Prison Live album, like
Hmm.
Canadian Music Hall of Fame. There was so much happening, but then you left to pursue Snake Oil, Icons of Rock.
Right.
Why the transition?
Well, with Harlequin, I got to meet all my heroes in the Canadian music industry. I got to share dressing rooms with Miles Goodwin from April Wine. I got to meet all the guys from April Wine. I got to meet Chilliwack. I got to meet Darby Mills. I got to meet, let's see, Bad Company. I got to meet Lou Gramm. I got to meet, Streetheart. All the big names. Honeymoon Suite. They took me out for dinner and asked me if I would sub and be their backup keyboard player for them. Things that I never dreamed happened. That was kind of one of my bucket list things. All that stuff came to fruition with Harlequin. We did 2 albums, one live album, and we did one original album called Waking the Jester when I was with the band. The biggest issue I had at that time is I wanted to do more. I felt a little bit that we were a little bit pigeonholed. I was working with George Belanger, the lead singer, who's still with the band from inception. Great guy. They're a great band. I still talk to them all the time. I was trying to grow it with George bigger than it was. And it wasn't going fast enough. And I put 100% of blame not on the band, but at the agent that was representing them at that time. I'd love to share his name, but I'm not going to. He was such a ball of negativity. And it came to a point that I just said, either we find new representation, because I can't allow myself as part of this to be represented by this shyster anymore.
Yeah.
And I left. But I had already started Snake Oil, which has now evolved into Ikons of Rock. Snake Oil had just started. It was myself and Derek Godfried, who's a guitar player with numerous country acts and with Harlequin still, and Chris Sutherland, who is now playing on Broadway down in with various shows down in New York. He was with Saga and Kim Mitchell at the time. We just decided when we were not on the road, we were just going to put together a throw together thing, play the tunes that we wanted to play, and we would have an open venue to play in Winnipeg. So that's what we did. And we sat down around my kitchen table and I said, well, let's use this name Snake Oil, just popped in my head. And they said, let's go. And we just went and did it. Then we went into we got a residency, so to speak, in Winnipeg at a little club down in Osbourne Village. And one night I came down, I put Kiss makeup on, I put Paul Stanley star on, and I made a throw together costume. It was pretty funny, but then the rest of the band started putting makeup on. And then all of the local interesting people and transvestites and cross-dressers and rock and roll fans and people that you don't typically see out at venues were starting to patronize the club. And I said, we got something here. This is really cool. This is like a Winnipeg. It's turning into like a Winnipeg Studio 54.
Yeah.
So we're on to something. So I took it to the next stage and I said, okay, we're going to imitate the biggest artists of classic rock of our eras from the 70s through the 90s. But we can only do artists that if we we got to be able to costume ourselves and look like them. So when we walk on the stage, people already know who it is before you sing one note or play one note on the guitar. And we've managed to do that. So, from Heart, Ozzy Osbourne, I put the glasses on. And I mean, you can see it all in the Icons of Rock website. There's
Yeah.
pictures of us as all the characters, right from Cher to Def Leppard to Rob Zombie to Evanescence. And we're doing the Eagles now and Tom Petty and John Mellencamp we just added. So we've got 3 totally different shows. We do one that's 70s oriented that caters to that Americana stuff, which is the Eagles and Fleetwood Mac and John Mellencamp and Cher and Tom Petty. And then we have the rock and roll stuff that is Snake Oil, but now branded as Icons of Rock, which is Ozzy Osbourne and Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons and Hart, Joan Jett, Van Halen, all that stuff. I still do the splits off the drum riser. And then we have a 90 show too. So we have 3 full shows, but we're going to be doing a tour throughout Canada, starting in BC, number of dates through there, through Alberta, through Manitoba, and ending up all around Greater Toronto area. I think there's 44 dates in September and October. So we're going to marry a little bit of the lighter stuff and go right to the hips. We'll marry the 3 shows together, all in full costume. It'll be a good show.
I'm looking forward to the tour because I've never seen the show. I think we have a photographer that just said that he wants to cover one of the gigs, and I'm gonna
Oh,
come
great.
to a gig so you and I can meet in person and say hi.
Oh,
Um,
great.
it sounds like with the Harlequin change that the same thing happened. You were staying true to yourself. You were being real, and you said, "This isn't for me. Fuck this guy. I've made my decision, and I'm pivoting." It sounds like you've done that your whole life, where you just stayed true to yourself and made decisions based on what your moral compass was saying, or your desire to create was saying.
It's funny you say it's a compass or knowing where you're going. To me, when I tell this story, and I tell it infrequently, but I always say I hit a wall somewhere. I've gone as far as I can go here. Time to move on. I wish some artists would do that, or some TV shows would do that. Know when they're at their prime and say, you know what, we did what we said we were going to do, and we accomplished it, and let's go out leaving our legacy intact. Some of them just like it to, ugh,
Just
yeah,
wanted to drag on. There was a
yeah,
Seinfeld episode where George Costanza did the whole "I'm leaving on a high note" thing, and his
oh,
whole bit was like, get to the high note and then just leave.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He makes them laugh. I'm out of here. Yeah, yeah, that's it.
So you've had a crazy career. There's innumerable moments that you probably haven't even captured. Like, what are some of the highlights, the craziest moments? You never thought this would happen. You're like, how did I even manage to get here? And then how did you get to the US? That's the other question. I was like, I wanted to know how you mentioned Wisconsin, you're in Vegas now. How did that happen?
Well, we were touring down here. Snake Oil, we did a little bit in the U.S. with Harlequin, but Snake Oil was the band that we took right down through California, right through New Mexico, all the way over to New York, and everywhere in between. So most of our dates were in the U.S. And at that time, being new to the U.S., I loved bringing U.S. dollars home and converting them into Canadian dollars. On one of our tours in Wisconsin, I met a girl, and she's now my second wife. And she had residence in Wisconsin, and she came to live with me in Canada. And we were down in the States more than we were in Canada. And she said, let's just move down to the States. She goes, most of your business is generated down here. So I said, okay. So we moved to Wisconsin. I was there for about 5 years. Then I was called to come down. There's so many stories I can tell. I was called to come down to Las Vegas by Brent Fitz, who at the time, he was with Slash at the time. He still works with Slash. He said, get your ass down here. He said, your old bandmate Scott is moving here. Scott was from Seventh Heaven. He was a bass player. I was Seventh Heaven. Brent was the drummer in Seventh Heaven. Come down here. We both want to meet with you. So I flew down here. We went out for a few dinners and we met. Darren, we want you to move down here. This is where you need to be. Let's do our swan song. Let's do something together. Let's do Ikons of Rock here. Let's get a residency for you here. Let's work together again like we did in Seventh Heaven. We always had fun. We've always communicated. We always got along. Scott has done tremendously in the entertainment business. He's managed so many different acts and artists and helped them get established. He's owned tour bus companies he's bought and sold. Now he's building casinos. He's got clubs going in on the Strip and the big casinos. And he said, I want to work with you. He said, I want to be part of Icons. He says, I love what you're doing. Why weren't you doing this when we were, together? I said, we grow and go different directions, but I'm glad we're all back together. We're like brothers. We see each other all the time. And the three of us have gotten together. We've got a residency starting in Las Vegas in January. I don't know if I'm not supposed to say where. The contract's supposed to come and land in my lap tomorrow. So if this comes out past tomorrow, it's at the Hard Rock Cafe. And hopefully lends itself into the Hard Rock hotel chain, which they've told us it may. And the Mirage closed down last fall, where the Beatles' Love was.
So sad. I love that hotel.
Now it's going to be, in 2028, it's a new Hard Rock hotel.
That's wild.
And hopefully we'll be the house band. So yeah, we're going to continue performing down here. We're going to do some cell division. So I have the touring act still going, and we'll have the residency playing 3 nights a week in Las Vegas, right in the middle of the Strip. We've got a cruise coming up, I believe June 26th with Royal Caribbean, Ikons of Rock cruise. We'll bring some other big names on it with us. So I've sprouted since we moved here. That's how I got to the U.S. I'll blame my wife for bringing me down here, but it's been a great move. Yeah. She loves it here too.
Congrats on all the success. It sounds like there's only more to come, especially with how hard you drive towards your goals. What is it that you'd say are like, one or two of the craziest moments in your career so far?
I don't know if you were like this. When I was a kid, I had posters right from the baseboards right to the ceiling. I couldn't touch 1 square inch of my wall in my room for Kiss posters. Brent called me up and said, you got to come down here. He was living in Los Angeles at the time, 2002, 2004, something like that. What am I coming down for? I'm not going to tell you. So I went down and said, okay, put your work clothes on. We're going to work this morning. What are we doing? I'm not telling you. So we went to Pasadena, and it was a 50th anniversary of American Bandstand. Dick Clark was there. I met Dick Clark. And I walked in there, and I said, what am I supposed to do? And Brent turns around and looks at me, and he goes, I'm the drum tech for Eric Singer, and you are the stage manager for Kiss today. I go, what? He said, you're the stage manager for Kiss. I go, what does that do? I said, what am I supposed to do? He says, you know how their stage looked. You know better than anybody else. He said, can you put the stage together? And I go, yeah. So it was a union room. So the union guys toted things in, and I told them where to put everything. And I had them clean and polish everything, including Eric Singer's drum kit, which had blood all over it from Gene spitting blood all over the hardware. And I had them polish everything. They came sauntering in as people off the street. Paul Stanley came in the front. Gene came in the back. Tommy Thayer had just started with the band. Eric Singer was with them then. And they did Detroit Rock City for American Bandstand. And I stood on side stage, and I couldn't believe it. They came in their street clothes. I recognized them clearly. And then they went back and they came out with their destroyer costumes on. And I'm standing a foot away from them. And I was just standing there thinking, God, I wish I was 12 years old again. you know, trying to grab some of that, but it was still there. That was fun. That was a highlight moment. Being
Good for
down
you.
here, of course, I see these people all the time, and I'm invited parties at Jerry McCambridge's place down here, who's the mentalist on the strip, and he has all these celebrities at his parties. So I meet a lot of people there. But the highlights for me, like I said before, were the early days in Seventh Heaven or the early days in Harlequin when I was with them, meeting all my heroes and sharing stages with them at these concerts and festivals, standing on side of the stage or going back to Jerry Doucette's room with them after and having a beer with them and just shooting the shit. I mean, that stuff. I mean, Jerry's, God bless him, he's gone now. I booked a number of shows with him. I booked him with Leonard Skinner. I booked Nick Gilder with some stuff. I met all my heroes from the Canadian music scene, and for that I'll be forever grateful to Harlequin. That was a really, honestly, my highlight. I mean, playing with Nazareth when Dan McCafferty was still fronting the band. He and I went after a show, and I tried to keep up with him in the lounge in our hotel, and I had a massive hangover the next day. But he gave me his phone number in Glasgow, and he said, next time you're in Scotland, lad, give me a shout, and we'll go out and have a pint. So I called him, but he wasn't feeling good, and he's passed since too. But all that stuff, I mean, you can't replace.
Yeah, you can't replace the moments and the stories. I had a similar experience with Airborne, a band from Australia. I could drink, I could hang. Went out drinking with Airborne, and man, I didn't feel good the next day. Those
Oh,
guys could crush
yeah.
stuff. I really appreciate the chat. It's been such an enlightening conversation. I'd love to end with just a piece of advice. And normally I'd say, what would you say to artists? But in your case, I can say, what would you say to your daughter, aspiring artist, aspiring musician? Like, what's the tip? What's the advice you give to her? What's the real?
Practice. Be true to yourself. If it's your passion, practice part is easy because it's it's like a video gamer. It's just a matter of playing the game because that's what they want to do. We call it practice. Practice is the word for people that don't enjoy what they do. But spend time with your instrument. Spend time honing your craft. Don't be afraid to make mistakes because we all do. Don't be afraid of embarrassing yourself because we all do. And those are the moments that you remember too. The good moments and the utterly embarrassing ones you remember. But that's all part of the story. It is. And the embarrassing moments are just as important as the highlights. Don't be afraid to ever embarrass yourself. Don't be afraid to sing sharp. Don't be afraid to stand on stage in your underwear. Like, people say, yeah, expose yourself to a certain degree.
Agreed. Fail fast, fail hard is what we say with
Oh,
with
yeah.
our team. It's funny is this full circle to the beginning of our conversation, right? About like Ozzy and not taking yourself too seriously. Uh, an anecdote that I wanted to share was I remember being young and being really into the show Scrubs. I don't know if you ever watched it. There was an episode of Scrubs where the blonde doctor, the pretty doctor, she was dealing with a patient, a very attractive guy who was surprisingly embarrassed about his issue because it had to do with his junk. He was in for some kind of penis related injury. Every
Okay.
episode was different type of injury or surgery or whatever. And it was kind of going on the whole episode that everyone was making fun of this guy and his friends were. And she finally said to him, she said, the only reason this is happening is because you're not making fun of yourself. And as soon as you lighten up and let go of the fact that you got like a penis injury, no one else is going to give a shit. And then, of course, sure enough, he started to make jokes and poke fun of himself. And then everyone stopped bugging him. And then this series, like the show ended and it was all good. But yeah, keep going. Fail hard, fail fast. Don't take it too seriously, but be serious in terms of like your work ethic and your approach to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't burn bridges unless you want them burned.
I
There's
really
another.
appreciate your time, Darren. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Chris. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you.